when she said I was holding them back. This is a true story from Oregon. My daughter threw my suitcase at me and said, "You're holding us back. You need to move out." So I left. And I froze the family account. She wanted freedom. I decided to let her feel what it actually costs. The suitcase flew through the air like garbage. It hit the front steps with a dull sound, bounced once, and landed beside the dying Alis plant I watered every morning, the one already struggling to survive. I stood there and looked at it. Soft leather, faded burgundy. The same suitcase I brought with me when I moved in to help her raise her baby. The same one I carried during the nights she cried herself to sleep. The same one that sat in the corner of the room when she cried every morning, begging me for strength because she didn't have any left. Now it sat on the ground. She stood there with her arms crossed. Her face didn't show anger anymore. It showed something colder, indifference. "You're holding us back," she said again. "Me, Mark, the kids, all of us. You turned this house into a prison, and we're tired of being your prisoners." I blinked. No tears came. I had already passed that stage. She wasn't done. "You have 3 days to be out. I already talked to a locksmith." I looked at the suitcase again. One zipper was broken. She hadn't even bothered to close it properly. The corner of my folded sweater stuck out like a tongue. I bent down slowly and picked it up. The handle creaked. My hands didn't shake, but hers had shaken years earlier when she first asked me to move in, back when the baby wouldn't stop crying, back when she hadn't had a real paycheck in months. 3 days, I said quietly as I stood upright. Her voice sharpened. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." "Harder for who?" I asked. "For all of us," she snapped. But the edge in her voice wasn't conviction. It was fear. Fear of not having the last word. Fear of being questioned. Fear of losing control. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I walked past her and down the steps, dragging the suitcase behind me. Each roll of the wheels sounded quieter than the one before. She didn't call after me. I stopped at the curb, pulled out my phone, and dialed one number. "Elaine," the voice answered on the second ring. "Yes," I said. "I need my name removed from the mortgage co-signature. She's asked me to leave." There was a pause. Then his voice returned, steady, tired. "Are you sure? I'm not staying in a house where I'm not welcome. I just need you to start the paperwork today." "I understand," he said. "I'll begin the withdrawal process. But once you do this, she'll have 30 days to refinance, or the loan will go into default." She wanted freedom. "I'm just giving her a taste of it," I replied. The motel I found was small, just off the highway. Floral curtains. A buzzing bathroom light that blinked like an old warning. I laid the suitcase on the bed, unzipped it, and shook my head at how she had stuffed everything inside. No care, no thought. She had folded me out of her life the way you fold a dirty napkin off a perfect white table. I made tea in the microwave. Too hot. The mug cracked slightly as I poured it. She always hated my tea. "It smells like roots," she used to say. Funny how she never minded those roots when I was paying for diapers or cooking meals at 3 in the morning. I opened my old notebook. Soft cover. Lined pages. Still filled with Daniel's scribbles from kindergarten. I started writing. Not to her. To myself. Day 1. Exiled. Not shocked. Just finally acknowledged. She wants the house. She wants her version of peace. But the house doesn't belong to her. Not fully, not legally, not morally. Because the truth is, She was never approved for that mortgage on her own. At 20, she destroyed her credit in an accident, the kind small towns quietly bury, the kind where names don't reach the newspaper if you ask the right people and pay quietly enough. I had co-signed everything. I had walked into the bank with shaking hands and lied through my teeth, telling them she was responsible, that she'd just hit a rough patch. No one needed to know about the bleeding passenger, the settlement, the weekly therapy bills she never paid. I made it all disappear, and now she was disappearing me. On the second day, she texted me. One sentence. Don't forget to take your tea kettle and that dusty old mirror, the one my grandmother gave me, the one you wanted to hang in the hallway. I remembered how she rolled her eyes back then. It's too antique, she said. It doesn't fit the aesthetic. I stared at the message, then deleted it. I made another call. Elaine, he answered. Confirm the paperwork has started. Yes, the bank will issue formal notice within 35 business days. Without a guarantor, she'll need to refinance immediately, but given her credit history, she won't qualify. He hesitated. Elaine, are you sure this is what you want? I watched the wind push a leaf across the motel parking lot. She wants to feel free, I said. I'm letting her, without my name holding the foundation together. That night, I dreamed of the accident, not the real one. The version where I didn't answer the phone at 2 in the morning. The version where I let the police handle it. Where I didn't pay the lawyers. Where I didn't beg the other mother not to press charges. In that dream, she went to jail. A mugshot. A record. No license. No mortgage. But that's not what happened. What happened was I showed up. I fixed it. I erased it. I became the invisible scaffolding of her second chance. Now she wanted a life where I didn't exist. So I disappeared on paper first. The rest would follow. On the third day, I packed the kettle, the mirror, and my notebook. I sat on the motel balcony and waited. Not for her call. Not for regret. I waited for silence to settle into clarity. I didn't need to explain what was coming. The bank would do that for me. She was 20 when it happened. 20 with a brand new license and a second-hand Honda Civic that smelled like fast food and cheap cologne. She'd been at a party, nothing wild, just loud music and stronger drinks than she admitted later. She swore she was fine to drive. Everyone else was worse. She was the responsible one. That's what she told the police. But the tire marks on the road told another story. So did the cracked windshield. So did the 5-year-old child sitting in the back of the other car. The child survived. A miracle, the doctor said. But the injuries were serious, months of recovery, endless medical bills, and a mother who wanted justice. I remember the knock at my door, her shaking hands in cuffs, the hospital waiting room, the smell of antiseptic and despair. The moment I realized my daughter's life had split in two, before the crash and after. She sobbed in my lap. I didn't mean to, Mom. I didn't mean to. And I believed her. She made a terrible mistake. But I couldn't let it be the end of her. So I did what mothers do. I showed up. I carried it. I paid, and I stayed silent.